Godhead. Offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravotra paramo nirmatsranam satam vedyam vastavam atravastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Purer Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tara Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient within itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Sukhamukad amritam dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.30. Of course, it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth, although you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord are not only bewildering, but also apparently contradictory. In other words, they are all inconceivable to the limited thinking power of the human being. The Lord is the all-pervading supersoul of all existence, and yet he appears in the form of a boar amongst the animals, in the form of a human being as Rama, Krishna, etc., in the form of a rishi like Narayana, in the form of an aquatic like a fish. Yet it is said that he is unborn, and he has nothing to do. In the Shruti mantra, it is said that the Supreme Brahman has nothing to do. No one is equal to or greater than him. He has manifold energies, and everything is performed by him perfectly by automatic knowledge, strength, and activity. All these statements prove without any question that the Lord's activities, forms, and deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power. And because he is inconceivably powerful, everything is possible in him. Therefore, no one can calculate him exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. He cannot be understood by the Vedic knowledge, but he can be easily understood by the pure devotees because they are intimately related with him. The devotees therefore know that although he appears amongst the animals, he is not an animal, nor a man, nor a rishi, nor a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. Of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Well, here we see that there are some mutually contradictory qualities of the Lord. And this is enough to bewilder anyone who's a logician and an empiricist. They cannot handle this because they themselves don't have the power to have mutually contradictory qualities. So previously in class with the kids, I outlined at least 12 points. There are many more that distinguish Krishna. These are some of the main ones. So number one, Krishna is the source of everything. That's Bhagavad Gita 10:8. Number two, he is the prime eternal and maintainer of all other eternal living entities. And that's Bhagavad Gita 2:12 and 7:10. And number three, he not only knows his body, but he knows everybody else's body, whereas the living entity only knows his own body. And that's 13:23. And then number four, he's the supersoul, cognizant of all bodies and everything. That's 7:12. And he's transcendental to all the modes of nature. I'm sorry, in those all bodies, that's a supersoul, it's 13:23. And then 7:12, he's transcendental to all the modes of nature, completely independent of them. And number five, there's no work that affects Krishna. He's not attached to the fruits of work, nor ever entangled by reactions of work. That's Bhagavad Gita 4:14. Then he has mutually contradictory qualities. He is one, but he expands into many. So that's Bhagavad Gita 13, chapter 14-15. He has no material legs, but he can run faster and is far away, but very near. It's Bhagavad Gita 13, chapter 16 and 17. Also Ishopanishad 5, mantra 5. Number 7, he possesses all opulences. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:1352, Bhagavad Gita 10.1. He's Sad Aishwarya Purnam. He's full of 6 opulences: riches, fame, power, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. Also, Adi Lila 1.3 and Bhagavad Gita 10.1. Okay. Then number 8, he possesses all yoga siddhis. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.7.26. Anima Lagima Mahima Prapti Prakamya Isitva Vasitva and Kama Vasaita. These are the 8 yoga siddhis. In other words, he's smaller than the smallest. He's lighter than a fly. He's bigger than the biggest. He can stretch his hand and take anything he wants and bring it under his control. He can attain any desire he wants. He can control anyone he wants. And he can create an entire universe. He can reverse the laws of nature. These are... Okay, and then number 9, he is perfect and complete. And that's the Ishopanishad first invocation. And he's never diminished. And number 10, Aja, he mystifies everyone. Just like Narada visits Krishna in Dwarka, he was mystified. And number 11, he manifests time, or kala, swabhava, which means samskaras, for purification, kama, desires, karma, modes of nature, karma, then modes of nature, and he's the cause of all causes. These are some remarkable things that he manifests. Okay, so those are like 12 points that distinguish him. There are more, but those are 12 major points that distinguish him from all other living entities. This is called the science of Krishna. We have to learn this to be able to convince people about that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's no other scripture that has such complete explanation of God's unique qualities that distinguish him from everyone else. So in this purport today, some of those unique qualities are stated. And because of that, he's bewildering. Why? Because human beings don't have those qualities. Therefore, when they hear about this, they say, "Oh, that's all fiction. It's not fact, right? Fact is only what we can do, not what you claim that Krishna can do." That is like, 300 years ago, if someone said, "You can fly through the air," people would look at him and say, "Are you crazy?" Right? And now people are flying through the air every day. And then someone else could say, "Oh, you can go anywhere you want under the ocean." Well, people would say, "You're crazy," but yet people can go anywhere they want under the ocean with submarines. In fact, one of the best ways that the criminals smuggle drugs into America is with a submarine. And then if you told someone, "Oh, well, you can talk to someone on the other side of the world," they'd say, "Well, you're crazy." But today, you can talk to anybody you want on the other side of the world, right? So, therefore, Prabhupada said that he had a godbrother who came from Germany and took initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And they asked him, "Why'd you come to India?" He said, "Well," and this is in the 1930s, he said, "Oh, we've already conquered all the mystic powers through science. Now I've come to India, I'm not attracted by these mystic powers. You can float on the water, you can go underneath the water, you can fly in the air." He said, I want to find out about who God is. So this is in the 1930s, right? And he took initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And his initiated name was Sadhananda Das. So, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are bewildering, and they're also transcendental. That is, they're inconceivable to the limited thinking power of the human being. And this is what holds most people back from believing in Krishna. It's because they depend only on their limited thinking power. They can't go think out of the box. And their box is very small. Very, very small. So when you hear about Krishna killing Putana when he was a little baby, and he sucked out her heart when she gave him her poisoned breast, and then she expanded into a real form of 12 miles long. People say this is like, a fairy tale. It's like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. We can't believe this. And we don't believe that God's a little baby. That means that he's like us. Well, he is and he isn't. He can do anything he wants. That's what this Kamavasayita and Vasitva qualities. Vasitva qualities. He can reverse the laws of nature, just like Lord Ramachandra was able to make gigantic rocks float. Rocks that were hundreds of tons. He made them float and built a bridge. That's reversing the laws of nature. Krishna picked up a mountain. That's reversing the law of gravity. Right? And same with Lord Ramachandra with the rocks. But and then also, if he can create a universe. Who can create a universe? It's a mystic power. Even Vishwamrita Muni, he developed the power to create a universe. And when he wanted to elevate an unqualified Sudra to heavenly planets, Indra stopped him. When that Sudra was coming up to Indraloki, he threw him back down. So Vishwamrita Muni became upset, and he used his mystical power to create an alternate universe with an alternate Indra. And he wanted to elevate the Sudra. But his problem was he had meditated for 60,000 years, and he built up a lot of mystical power. But he used it all up. And then he failed. And also he got married, or at least he had a relationship with Menaka. So he had to start all over again. So mystical powers, that proves that mystical powers are also material, because you can use them up and you have to start all over again. So then, the Lord is all-prevailing supersoul, yet he appears in the form of a boar amongst the animals. Actually, Krishna incarnates in every one of the species, because they're all his children, right? They're all living entities. They're all fallen from the spiritual world. So he appears in every species, not just the boar or the fish or the turtle, And also he appears as a rishi. Rishi is a saintly king, and and so Arjuna appears as Nara, and the Lord appears as Narayana. So this is an incarnation of Lord Nara Narayana. And then as a fish, or as Rama, and in his original form as Krishna. So in the human form, in animal form, in aquatic form, and so forth. But yet, he's unborn. And so this is confusing. So how can he be born in these different forms? Or at least it appears like that. And then he's unborn. So all this is confusing. People say, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand any of it. I'll just go back to smoking marijuana. And that makes more sense to me. And that, but on the other hand, he has no obligations, and he's not forced to do anything. But yet he does follow the rules and regulations, and like when he's Krishna in Dwarka, of a normal householder. That is to give an example, but he's not obliged to do it. And then, what is the most beautiful thing in the spiritual world? The same thing pervertedly reflected in the material world is the lowest thing. So in the spiritual world, you have Swakara and Parakiya. So, anyway, you have Krishna is married to the queens of Dwarka, but he's also engages with married women. Radharani is married. Most of the gopis are all married, but he dances with them in the period of the fall season. So that is considered the highest spiritual relationship, that when he's dancing with the gopis, who are all married women. Now, the same thing in the material world is the lowest thing you can do. But the same thing in the spiritual world is the highest thing. You see? So people can't understand this. We don't understand. Why? What's the difference? Krishna has unlimited energy. It's like the sun. The sun can purify anything. So you can see, traditionally in the villages, they designate one field for passing stool. They don't have plumbing. They don't have modern toilets and all that junk. So everybody goes to that field and passes stool. One time I was in Mayapur, and I didn't understand all these things. So I wanted to go to the Ganges. And this is a long time ago, before Mayapur was built up. There was only like one building that was the Lotus building. There was no other building in Mayapur, in our land. And there were there were a few temples, but it's not like today. It's like become a big city of temples. So I wanted to go to the Ganges, so I had to walk. So I'm walking, and I have to walk across this field to get to the Ganges. But after I entered the field, I saw this human stool all over the place. I'm stepping in it, I was thinking to myself, how did this happen? Right? Because the villagers always designate one field in the village where they pass stool. And everybody knows, you don't walk across the field, You just take one part of the field and pass stool. So, but most of the stool, except for the one that had been just placed there by somebody, was like a dry cake, and eventually became powder under the hot sun of Mayapur. So the sun is purifying stool and urine. Now, normally that's a very dirty job, but the sun has so much power that it's never affected by it. So that's the example. When Krishna has absolute powers, inconceivable powers, therefore is not affected like normal people would be affected by sinful activities. And it's not sinful for him, it's the most beautiful relationship. So we see when people try and imitate Krishna, they become sinful. So he has manifold energies. He has incredible energies. This is another thing that people don't understand. The scientists have only identified two energies: electromagnetism and gravity. There are many, many more energies. And in his external material creation and in the internal. So we see why it's so difficult for people to understand Krishna. He has this unending qualities and energies, and people can't handle it. It's beyond their understanding. Only the devotees can understand this, because they're not envious of Krishna. They're not trying to emulate Krishna. They're not trying to be a competitor of Krishna. So it says, and the other thing is, he can perform many different activities simultaneously. He can be in many different places simultaneously. He can have many different forms simultaneously, just like Lord Ramachandra met Parasuram. Parasuram is the incarnation of the Lord. Ramachandra is the incarnation of the Lord. They meet each other, right? And then oftentimes there are multiple incarnations of the Lord simultaneously in one place. There's Vyasadeva. There's Krishna. You know, they were all there when Bhisma Pitamaha disappeared. There's Narada Muni, right? So they're all incarnations of the Lord. Okay, so he's inconceivably powerful. Everything is possible for him. Therefore, no one can calculate him exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. He cannot be understood by the Vedic knowledge. That's another point. We usually say, oh, you can understand Krishna if you read the Vedas. Actually, no. That's another point. Don't put your finger in your mouth. Go wash your hands.
Putting on top.
That's the same. But he is easily understood by the devotees because they are intimately related with him. The devotees therefore know that although he appears amongst the animals, he is not an animal, nor a man, nor a rishi, nor a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol, Haribol. Yeah.
Sometimes people generally will argue with respect to why Krishna has so many devotees, why he is dancing. The devotees we can explain, but normal people, how we try to help them understand? Yeah.
Well, how is it that all of us are expanded from Krishna? That's even more amazing than his dancing with 16,000 gopis. How is it that every one of us is part and parcel of Krishna? Now we're talking about billions of people. You see, he has inconceivable energies. That's the point. That's God. We just have to get used to it. He can do things that we can't do. And if we try and imitate him, we become sinful. So either, the Prabhupada says, I have to find that quote. He said, if you don't accept that Krishna has immeasurable, inconceivable energies, you remain an impersonalist, you remain an impersonalist. Which, you remain a non-believer, a non-believer. So this is just a fact. There are some things that are just facts. Like, for example, I cannot lift a mountain. That's a fact. But that doesn't mean nobody can do it. It just means I can't do it. Right? So if you say nobody can lift a mountain, but yet Krishna lifted Govardhan. So we have to accept that God has inconceivable energy, otherwise we remain an atheist.
So how do we,
But we can see the energies. We can see it every day.
No, I can understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that normal when they try to argue, like especially all this.
Well, that's like the frog in the well. That's why that example is there, the frog in the well. The frog cannot estimate the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean. He can only estimate it in terms of his well. So our time-space module is so limited that when we hear about God, we can't imagine it, like the frog. That's the way you explain it. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You see all these papers? These are all classes.